Good afternoon. Sunday afternoon here in sunny Hampshire, and this is a video response to the Pipe Nook, who's doing a 1,000 sub giveaway, and that was put onto him by Matches860, who did a VR, and then a few other people have done a VR. Guy in US I started watching, no, sorry, Australia. Oh, can't think of his name now. It'll come to me. Anyway, he proposed that it was all about music. He said you could do your favourite albums, your favourite artists, your favourite songs, but he mainly wanted to know about albums. He wanted at least 5. And it was music that meant something to you. I think I got that from him. Stuff that you keep going back to. So I thought, what do I always have? Now, I was in my teenage years and 20s in the 90s, which in UK was very much a Britpop era, but also a massive dance scene. So I've chosen a couple of things from there. Got a few things that are a bit more recent. I don't think I've got anything I haven't picked anything that I got from like my parents. Sometimes you can be influenced by what your parents used to do. My dad listened to a lot of Dire Straits, and I do go back to Money for Nothing album. I like that, but it's not something I feel that really kind of resonates with me. So hopefully these are the things that I've got more than 5. Hope that's okay. So the first album that I'm picking is by the Stereophonics. They're a Welsh band. If you live in the UK, you probably know them quite well. And I'm looking at their album called Word Gets Around. Now, this I first heard when it first came out back in 97, 98, around that time. And my housemate that I lived with when I was at university really got me into this. And I listened to it all the time, and it's one of those albums, there's not a bad song on there. I will like every song. I can listen to it from the first song, which is 1,000 Trees, straight through, what's the last one? I think it's Billy Davies' Daughter. Listen to it all the way through. There's a couple of really good ones in there that I like. Yeah, Stereophonics, Word Gets Around. If you've not heard of them, their music's good. I'd say their first 2 albums are their best, and then maybe their 5th or 6th were quite good, but not really. They were the tail end of Britpop, really. So that's one that resonates with me. What I'll do is I'm going to perhaps stick a little picture of the album covers, see if I can edit that in. So the second one is just an artist, because I couldn't pick one album from them, and it's the Levellers. Now they are a folk rock band. So there's violin or fiddle or whatever you want to call it in there, guitars, drums, a crazy bass player with massive dreadlocks, and I suppose you'd say their music airs on the left side of politics. They're not particularly mainstream, but I really like their stuff. My housemate Andy, who I shared a house with all the time at university, got me into them, and a few other people as well, like the Wonder Stuff. Again, very big 90s bands. Couple of big hits from the Levellers. No, I can't think what it is, but there is one that you'd probably recognise. There's a couple about men going off to war and stuff like that. So the Levellers, I will put one of their more popular, Living in the Land is probably their most well-known album. So I'll pop that up. So my next album is by a group called the Seahorses. They only released one album, and it was called Do It Yourself. It has one of my favourite tracks that I can put on and really rock to. I don't know, rock too is a term. But it's called Love Is the Law, and it's got a sort of 5-minute guitar solo in it. Drum and bass sort of stuff. I don't mean drum and bass, but I mean drums and bass, guitars. The interesting thing about this group is John Squire, the guitarist, was the guitarist from Stone Roses. If you've not heard of them, they're like one of the ultimate Britpop bands that started off that sort of movement. Very popular. But that album I can just go back. Mainly I like Love Is the Law, Happiness Is Egg Shaped. A couple of songs on there that I can listen to again and again and again. The rest of the album's good, but they're my two favourites. But again, it's one that I just keep going back to. It reminds me of being at university and all the sort of things that I was doing at that time in my life, really. Yeah, so I really enjoyed listening to that album. If you haven't picked that up, I'd recommend it if you want to listen to something that's perhaps quintessentially British but not very mainstream. Anyway, it's not in any real date order, this. My we're on to fourth choice is by a group called Lower Than Atlantis, and the album is just called Lower Than Atlantis. It's from 2014, so it's only 2 years old. But since I've heard it, I keep going back to it more and more and more, and it's pretty much I can have it on the background all the time now, and I really enjoy it. It's got some sort of hard guitar rock in it, along with some fairly mellower tunes as well. There's one called Kids in America, which I really like. That it starts off quite slow and then it moves on to being a bit more fast as well. So again, that's something in the last 2 years I've just gone back to again and again and again and again. I can't see it being an album I don't listen to. Again, I'll pop that out. I got a cheat sheet because I had to write it down. Oh, haven't even said what I'm smoking. Some Samuel Gorworth Navy Flake in a Dunhill Bruyere Dublin XL. And you see I've tried to, it was quite heavily charred around the rim. But it's a 1978 pipe, which is the year I was born. So figured I'd treat myself. It wasn't cheap. Anyway, sometimes you just got to treat yourself, haven't you? So my next album is by a band called Supergrass. Again, very much Britpop. They're guys from Oxford, well known in the UK, and they've got a style of their own, and they do a lot of upbeat stuff, a lot of chilled out stuff, and sometimes there's music in films, I've noticed. But the album that I've picked, because I couldn't pick one of all their albums, is Supergrass's 10, the very best of their first 10 years. And it's got some cracking tunes in it. Caught by the Fuzz, Richard III, Grace, Sun Hits the Sky, which every time they play it, apparently the sun comes out, so they're very popular. But it's an album that I will go back to again and again and again, and keep trying to keep this pipe going. And I love it. It really reminds me of Sun Hits the Sky. Reminds me of going to V Festival in 2001 when I saw Supergrass live. Only a 3-piece band. They played Sun Hits the Sky. The sun came out, and I was with some mates. It was just fantastic, and it just reminds me of that time in my life. Right, 3 more. The next one is an album by a female artist called Adele. Quite popular. She did a Bond theme song. She's very big in the UK. I think she's quite big in the States now as well. But I'm looking at her album 21 think her first one's called 19 and her second one's 24, 5, something like that. I think they relate to her age. But 21's got my favourite track on, wasn't it all the way? Even mine goes blank. Turning Tables, which is a song that I really like. It's quite deep and meaningful and relates to a point in my life where I was having some troubles, and used to listen to that, get myself all emotional. But every time I listen to it now, I really enjoy it. There's a couple of notes in it that are very poignant. So that's that. Adele, 21. The next one probably didn't go with anything else that I've suggested, but it's Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill from 1996. And I picked that because the first serious girlfriend I ever had, the first time I went over to her house, and I can remember now, it was June 1996, she had this on a tape, and she had the Ironic song, and she just played it again and again and again and again. We just sat there. So every time I hear that song, I think about that point in my life and the good times I had. But also bought her the album, and I think I listened to the album more than she did, and I like all the other songs on there, and it just reminds me of being, 17, 18, carefree, worrying about shit that you worry about that point in your life. So yeah, Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill. Really, really like that album. Again, it's something I just keep going back to again and again and again. It's not for everyone, she's kind of a strange woman, but I like that album. The last one really is the only mainstream dance thing I could put down, because most of my dance music tastes relate to what in the UK was what we call rave music, or not acid house, but we used to have happy hardcore, jungle music, techno, and none of them were very mainstream. And I used to go and buy dance pack tape, from live recordings, go to these events as well. You wouldn't think to look at me now, smoke a pipe and sit out here making videos on YouTube, but when I was 17 I was very into this scene. It's the most mainstream album I could pick out from that, and it's the one I used to listen to cycling to and from work all the time, is The Prodigy, and it's the Experience album. I think in 1993. It's got such classics as Out of Space, Everybody in the Place. Yeah, I just, of all the dance albums that I really have, that's the one that I will put on most of all, and it's the most mainstream one. But it reminds me again of that time in my life when I was heavily into that kind of music, and it was, one thing that people could understand that's what I liked, and it was, all the stuff that I listened to was quite similar to that. But it was a massive album at the time that I was listening to it. So there we go. That's my list. They're songs that they're albums, and one of them is an artist that I will listen to again and again. I've always got them on one of my devices that I plug into the car or have just for exercising or whatever. So yeah. So Pipe Nook. I hope that was what you're after. Hope I've given you maybe some British music to think about, perhaps some suggestions to go away and look at, depending on the types of things that you're into. Anyway, Alex George, that's who I was looking at, and he was whipping out vinyl. Brilliant. Anyway, that's the end of this video. It has taken me 14 minutes to get through all that, and I wasn't particularly slow about it either. So Pipe Nook, I hope you enjoy this. Thanks for doing a cracking giveaway. I know you've got a lot of people that love your channel and your pipe shop, so I hope to look at more of your videos and get more into it. Anyway, so this is me signing off. See you around.